Hi there everybody. In this video I am going to show you how I paint this painting right here, and it is an instructional video, so it's going to be a little bit longer because if I just put it to music and time-lapsed it, I have many people asking me to provide more instruction, and so I have plenty of videos that have instruction and some that are time-lapsed. I hope you enjoy this video, and I actually am narrating this and editing this video a good 8, maybe 10 months after I filmed it and painted it. So there are some points of the video where they're time-lapsed and I'm narrating, and then some points where I am talking as I'm painting. So I hope you enjoy it, and please do click on the link up to your right there that's coming across, because there is a watercolor giveaway going on right now and you can win really great watercolor prizes, and I've added more that I need to update you guys to than what I originally said. So yeah, go ahead and click that and enjoy watching. Okay, so I'm just going to go over these quickly. This is the set that you can get on Amazon. These are available at Jerry's Artorama, but I live in Canada, so I cannot get them. I have to order them on Amazon. And these are, they're called Mimik. So what they do is they mimic the Kolinsky, the genuine Kolinsky squirrel sable brush. And this set is great because it comes with, so it's a lot cheaper than the genuine squirrel. 2-inch wash, sorry I'm getting distracted here, 30 round, 3/4 flat, 12 round, 8 round, 4 round, and 2 round, and then there is a liner brush. All right, so far these work great. I did a portrait painting, watercolor painting, where I needed to be more detailed, and they worked good for that. They hold a lot more pigment and water than what I'm used to with my other brushes, so there was an adjustment period. Also, I might be using some of these because I don't have the right size of an angled brush. It doesn't come with an angled brush. So I might be using Winsor Newton Cotman 1/2 inch angled, and then this is just a Artist Loft brush, so it's just a small one for Michael's. To start with, I have sized this paper a little bit. So I've already sprayed it with water once, and I am just going to spray it down again because I'm going to be doing some wet into wet painting here. And unfortunately, where I live in northern Alberta, Canada, it is so dry. Not because we don't have any snow, we have tons of snow, it just dries everything out. It's weird. More snow, more dry. I don't know how to explain that. So I'm just getting that right in there. This will be fun to use. I still got glue on there. I haven't used this one at all. These are great for detail, I've got to say. Really great for detail. On the watercolor one, on the portrait one, sorry, I did not use this one, and I didn't use the liner. I just used, or the flats, I just used like the 8 and the 12 round. So you can check that out. We'll put the link up in the corner there. And I've got to keep this wet because I'm going to be doing some things that kind of need to be softened. This is a little bit different than my normal loose watercolor style. I haven't done, this is a little, I'm doing it a little bit differently. We'll see how that turns out. That's always interesting when you do things differently. But I kind of feel like you gotta try sometimes, right? Oh, and we got some turquoise in there. This brush is bigger than I imagine. So I'm just putting down, just getting some blocks of color in there. So this was already wet. And most of the paints I'm using are from Daniel Smith. My palette is mostly Daniel Smith and a little bit of Core, a little bit of Aquarelle Sennelier, and a little bit of Winsor Newton. Woo! That's some cadmium red, medium by Daniel Smith. Look at that. We're gonna move that around. That's for sure. Okay, so in order to make sure this video isn't too long, but to also make it long enough so that you guys can really kind of get into the video and into the painting and see what I'm doing, I'm going to kind of narrate a little bit and just speed it up a tiny little bit. If you want to see it in slow motion, and this goes for any video, click on the settings and you can do the playback speed and you can speed up a video or you can slow it down. Like if someone has time-lapsed it, you can slow that down. I mean, my voice is going to be slower, so that might be annoying or entertaining. I don't know. But anyways, let's get talking about the painting. So all I'm doing is I am just putting washes of color, and I'm kind of thinking, you know, where do I want some the main composition of flowers to be. And the yellow, kind of greenish yellow, is going to serve as a little bit of light, maybe some sunlight. I put some blue in there. I'm not sure why, like that's going to turn into leaves. And I want it to drip because I want a feeling of the flowers just kind of dripping down. So I guess that's a little bit of an abstract kind of feeling there. And now I'm using those washes of color and I'm using that as my guide for what color of roses I'm going to put. It might change. I might put, you know, a different color over a different color of wash. It might not be exactly the same color, but in general it's going to be a darker color than what I have of the wash. So you can see that the yellow there, that light yellow wash, I'm using more of a gold behind there. And now I've got some red there, and also you can use the same color, exactly the same shade if you want, as long as the wash of color has faded enough and you've put enough water in there and diluted it enough so that it'll show up more pigmented on the page when you actually start putting in your flower petal shapes. So I use the same red as the wash, but because it's I use more paint and less water, then it's going to show up a little bit. And you can see that already, that whatever I painted there in the red, that's just dripping down, and that's totally fine. We're just doing some basic shapes of flowers just to kind of, we're just getting our feet wet. At first it was just putting some blocks of color in, and now it's just kind of like, okay, do I want this flower here? I think that'll work over here. I'm just starting to kind of see where some flowers can go, and just putting in some basic details of flowers, and I just kind of add it as I feel, just kind of as I feel it's needed. So sometimes I might feel like, okay, I can add a little bit more detail about this, and then other times I might be like, I gotta leave this flower alone because I'm not sure what to do. So I'm just putting in a few shapes here and, you know, a few little brush strokes here. And sometimes it's just waiting for that paint to dry a little bit, because I know if I keep adding paint, it's just going to keep doing the same thing and it'll get too much water on there. So really it just, it takes a lot of practice to get, it's a lot of feeling. It's just a lot of intuition and just getting to know. And it sounds kind of hard and complicated, like, how am I going to figure that out? But I taught myself watercolor, and I did that after teaching myself acrylic and mixed media and whatever. And then I was like, you know, I really kind of want to learn watercolor. And so at first it seemed like it was going to be pretty useless. I wasn't going to get anywhere, and I was like, well, obviously I can't paint watercolor flowers. Like, obviously, this is this is not my forte, and this is not ever going to be anything close to even possible. But of course, then, you know, that's fine for a little bit, and then, you know, a month or two down the road, I'm like, okay, no, now I have to figure this out, because I just told myself it was impossible. It can't be impossible. I've got to figure this out. Like, it almost bugs me when I kind of give up on myself like that. After thinking about it, I'm kind of like, no, I've got to figure this out. So I just kept going and going, and honestly, that kind of frustrating period was actually where I learned, and it actually was where I kind of got to know how much water, and it's just a feeling of how much water to use, how much paint to use, and what to use when for whatever effect you want to get. And I mean, honestly, I'm still learning, because lots of times I put something in and I'm like, oh, that was too wet, and that is not what I wanted to do. So it's not something I've finished learning. You can see that I felt that the red area there, the reddest area, was a little bit too dry. And so I sprayed some water there, because I do want some of those brush strokes to show. I don't want them to completely run out, but I wanted them to kind of air out, like just kind of soften, just to soften the focus. I don't want any hard lines there, at least not yet. And so that's why I just kind of put a little bit of water on there, just to make it a little bit softer focus. And I mean, still looking at this as I'm narrating, and it's like, ooh, what have I got going on here? But you got to keep going, and that's with any painting, no matter what kind of style you're doing. Like, if you're doing mixed media, still keep going. And if you end up still having a mess, I mean, watercolor is harder because you can only paint so much. Acrylic, you can just always keep painting over. So in some ways, acrylic is a little bit easier. Now here I'm doing some negative painting with the green and the yellow. So I'm just kind of imagining what sort of odd shapes that yellow flower can be. And you can see even in the beside that yellow flower there, I added in some red, because some roses kind of have, you know, they're got two colors, like they have yellow and then they have red tips on the petals or whatever. So I'm doing some negative painting, and we'll definitely be looking at some more videos with negative painting, and I'll be talking about that a little more. And here it looks like I might be doing some more negative painting. I actually filmed this video quite some time ago, and I'm only getting it up now. So I'm just trying to remember what I'm doing, and basically watching myself and seeing what I'm doing at the time. And there I've added a little bit more cool green, because I don't want to have all the same shades of green, because that just makes it really flat and boring. And it is a good idea to kind of know ahead of time what greens you kind of want, because sometimes you might want a really cool toned, and that will give you a certain green if you do more cool toned greens, and then if you do more warm toned greens, then it gives it a more, obviously a more warm look. If you want a more vintage look, you're gonna kind of go for warmer tones. At least that's how I see. I mean, there's definitely exceptions to the rule there. And you can see that's still still quite wet there, and it's running. And then I also kind of stop narrating here in a little bit and just explain as I paint. So whenever I stop to kind of talk as I paint, then I will definitely include that. But some of this I was not talking at all. And here I'm adding some indigo to bring out some shadows. Okay, so here I'm starting to use my round. A lot of the work I had to do with the flat brushes, I used this for the bigger ones, and then I had to go in with this to make it a little bit more detailed. And I'm still not done, so I'm going to have to go back still with the shading a little bit. And then now I kind of want to do some more detail work and just some like dry brushing, slightly dry brushing just on the side along the paper like that. And these are great because they have such a long tip and it's just the smallest thing. So like you can do really great, like look at this line work I can do. Well, you can't see it there, but here, let me just show you. Like it's just great, like just for putting little bits of, because I want to keep this loose, but I'm still going to want a little bit of fine details just to, you know, emphasize things a little bit. And this is amazing. This is the 12 actually, and I think I'm fine with that. It's great because I can still get those things. I can use the same brush for just getting these fine, quick, wispy lines and doing this kind of work, which is what I like to do when I'm doing something like this. So the reason why I am not talking, it's sometimes easier for me to just paint and not talk and narrate after, is because it can be a little bit distracting when I am talking and trying to teach as I'm painting. Sometimes it's fine. Most of the times that's how my videos are. But sometimes it's just nice. It's a little bit more freeing and it's a little bit more, it helps me to just be free more and just not get so caught up and get too specific in my paintings when I'm able to not have to explain. And so some videos will be me narrating after and just kind of doing instructional teaching that way. But there is definitely a benefit to me for teaching purposes for me to talk as I'm painting. And when I teach classes in person, I always have a demonstration canvas. And let me tell you, that canvas is always a complete disaster because I can never paint anything normal when I'm teaching because it's just, my whole canvas is just me practicing techniques. And even though I plan to do like a painting, it never works out that way because I'm like, oh, here, let me show you this, and this is how you do a stem over here, and this is how you do this, and it just doesn't work. So what I'm doing now is I'm adding some darker tones in there. I really, really like indigo. Indigo is one of the colors that I suggest everyone get. It's one of my favorite kind of fun colors. I have two different kind of suggestions for a starter palette, and indigo is on both of them. The one that is a little bit more fun and just colors I love, and then other colors that I'm like, you need these. And indigo is one of those that I just think you need, especially if you're doing this kind of thing. Maybe if you're painting completely different subjects than this, but I really like the indigo in there mixed with some of the greens. It just really helps to get some of those dark shadows in there and make those colors pop out and look like they're forward. And so I really like indigo. You can see I kind of messed up there at the top there because I used a little bit more pigment than I thought I had on my brush. But again, at the time when I was using these brushes, they were, this is kind of a review for them as well. So you can see that I add a little bit at a time. The values get darker a little bit at a time. I don't go in and try to paint, you know, you can, like I had already put indigo there, but I don't try to do that on the first go. And I don't even do that with the flowers. It's a process. So you can always go darker, but you know, it's very hard to go lighter. And so you kind of, and you need to see how the whole painting develops. So when you're doing watercolor and even, you know, acrylics, but especially with watercolor, you can't expect, okay, so the finished product, I'm going to paint right now. You kind of work at it and then you let that sit for a certain amount of time maybe, and then you go in again. Or if you want a looser, unfocused look, then you might go in a little bit sooner than if you want to do another completely detailed layer on top of what, a wash that you've done. I'm loving how those two red flowers on the right side of the painting are running down with the green and mixing like with some yellow in there. Like, look at those colors mixing together. And now you can see I'm adding much more detailed work in the center of some of those flowers. So that is that's dry. Like, I can tell by my brush strokes right there that the very middle of that flower that I'm working on right now is completely dry, because the pigment is not running at all. Now, what I'm doing along the edge there, I'm using a little bit more washed out pigment, and it could be a little bit more wet there in that area. So if you want some softer focused flowers, you do need to have some wet paper. It needs to be a little bit wet, not completely dripping, and there's no way to tell you like a percentage, because it depends on where you live, it depends on your environment, it depends on so many different things. So you really kind of have to just experiment, and I will try to actually put together a video to kind of show you a little bit more of what I mean, to just kind of really just put it into some basic steps for you. As I'm narrating this video, I think that would be a good video to do, just to really help you know what I mean. And it might be quite simple for some of you, and you might be like, okay, well, this is so obvious. But I think a lot of times, especially if you're starting out, you have no idea like what. So it might be obvious to someone who's worked with watercolors, or even to someone who's, been doing watercolors for only a year or whatever. But it's not so obvious, and that's one of the ways, because I'm a self-taught artist, one of the ways I like to teach, the way I approach teaching, is to approach it from like the very beginning. Like, if I'm doing a basic beginner instruction type video, I want to explain things that might seem very simple to other people, because lots of times, there's some people that are like, what's wet into wet painting? You can kind of break it down, but still, you don't necessarily know that. And that's just one of the terms. There's a few terms. Anyways, let's get back to this painting. You can see I'm adding just a few little strokes in the leaves just to put some veins in there. And on the left side, you can see how I used indigo, one of my favorite, one of my recommended, to really bring out that leaf with a negative painting. And there is going to be some videos coming up with some negative painting techniques. And I am just kind of refining some of those details there. So now I'm going in with more detail work, and you really do, at least for me, maybe depending on what you're used to painting with and your style of painting, you really do need to get off some extra, because it doesn't seem like there's much on there, but then as soon as you shake your brush, there's like a whole bunch of water on there that I'm not expecting. So if I was to paint, then it wouldn't work very well, and I would kind of screw things up, which I've done plenty of times already in this painting and in my other review painting. So, I love these brushes, but there is definitely a little bit of a learning curve. Like, I just have to keep remembering to shake off that excess water, because I'm used to a certain amount of water, and then you know how you just like instinctively just start wiping off the brush and then you just know how much water's on there? I'm having to remember, like I'm having to consciously remember, okay, no, there's more water on here than I think, than if I was to use another brush. So this rose here is, I got too much paint on there, but part of it was me not being careful, and part of it was I just wasn't being conscious enough with the brush. So I'm going to have to work with this a little bit. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I might put some other color in there to confuse those big chunky lines. But I really like this, and I love the coloring that I've got here. So I don't really want to ruin this, because I had to do the same thing over here, and I ruined some really cool effects over here. So I don't really want to do that over here. Like, this looks awkward. It looks like a perfect wheel kind of thing. So I've got to fix that. I love this flower. I'm just going to go in with a little bit darker colors just in the middle there. And we'll see here. I should probably go in and just soften this a little bit. So I'm trying to use colors, non-staining colors. So that is quinacridones and some cadmiums, although this was cadmium red and it, whatever, but that's a whole nother story. And this is Opera Rose, at least the original wash was Opera Rose. And this is cadmium orange and an orange yellow by Derwent, actually, was used in this. So for the most part it's quinacridone gold, quinacridone sienna I might have used a little bit, I'm not sure. I didn't use any alizarin crimson because it's so staining for me and I just wanted to stay away from it. But I might put it in at the end for details. And right now I'm just doing this one with the quinacridone, what am I thinking? Quinacridone magenta. No, quinacridone coral, sorry. And I'm just, because I want this nice soft petals, but I want the details to go, like, look at how soft this is here. So I don't want to put too much in that. And that was the original wash here, and that just creates like just a nice petal, turning petal just kind of randomly. So I love it when that happens. My tendency is to start overworking at this point, especially if I'm doing a video. It's because I'm trying to like concentrate on the video and concentrate on painting, and it just doesn't work. So I really want to just be careful to not overwork this. I think I'll just put a little bit of a emphasis there, and I think that's all I'm going to do with that one. I think that's good. This one I'm scared of. I don't know what to do with it. So I'm avoiding it at all costs, which I can only do that for so long. And I'm going in with, so this is dry, wet on dry painting, but when I say wet on dry, I mean not very much water on this detail brush, because I don't want to have, you know, whatever. So I'm trying to, so like usually I dip my brush in and then I do a couple whatever, and that I'm used to that amount of water, but there's more water than what I'm used to. So that's just what I'm talking about, like with the instinct that you get after painting for a while. You just kind of know how much, you don't have to think about it. But when you start working with a different brush than what you're used to, you have to think about, you know, is it holding more water or less water? And I'm very proud of myself just because I was talking and I remembered to shake some excess water off my brush. Oh, I don't know what I've got going on here. I don't want to ruin that flower. I really, really like that flower. And I've got this glare on it right now, so I can't even see what I'm doing. So let's just come along here. Put a petal coming along here. I don't even know if that works. Probably doesn't. So this is quinacridone gold, I believe. Yeah, quinacridone gold by Donna Smith. Yeah. Ugh. Okay, and I'm just gonna put a little. See that bead on there? I mean, my other brushes have beads too, but this is like a little much. Okay, how much do I want to soften that line? I kind of like just having a fine line there. just, there we go, that works. And then maybe just a little one right there. Just to, because this is completely, almost completely in the light there. And so I just want part of it to be catching the light. Okay, that's good, I'm gonna leave that. This is kind of a disaster as well. I think I'm gonna try my Phthalo Crimson, which I'll have to be careful because it's a phthalo, and phthalos are usually staining, and look at how much is on there. So I'm just using the number 4 around. And then if I want to move it, I'm going to have to go in really quickly here. I also have a quinacridone, what am I thinking? A rose of ultramarine that I might try, but it's pretty granulated, so I'm not sure if I want to do that or not. Let's see here. I don't really like whatever I've got going on here. I'm almost tempted to go in with some white and some of these, like this one and this one. That might be the only way to fix that. I mean, it probably isn't. But as far as my skill set goes, and I just want to go in maybe some burnt sienna here with this one. Just a little bit here. My problem is I do all of these roses the same shape, and I need to change up my formula just a titch. I'm still, as far as I'm concerned, I'm still learning how to paint roses properly, or at least in the style that I want them to be in. You know how you're like, okay, I can paint a rose, but it still doesn't look the way I want it to. It's just not the style that I want. So I'm still trying to figure that out. Okay, I don't mind if this drips a little bit. Actually, you know what? That looks like a good place for a little stem. Just add that in the water there. We need some dark in there anyway. I was trying to figure out what to do with this extra part here. Just make this into a little bit of a bud. Ooh, I like it. And I need to do the same thing here. So maybe I'm gonna do that right now. I really like my Undersea Green. It's a new one that I've got, and I think I like it just as much as my Green Apatite Genuine, actually. I'm pretty happy with it. So I'm doing a lot of negative painting at this stage. Well, not just at this stage, like I was doing it already. And I like to use my flat brush for the negative painting, but oh, see, I love that. This works really good, actually. Like, it gives me those straight edges, like those jagged edges, and I really like it. I think I'm just gonna bring that up a little bit. Yeah, that emphasizes that indigo there, really helps to bring out this yellow. Not that it needs to be, but since we like it so much, let's see what else we can do before we start ruining it. When I say we, I mean me. Okay, I'm going to do some more time lapse here because you do not care about all of my meandering thoughts. Maybe you do. If you do, let me know in the comments. If you prefer me just time-lapsing it and just doing like a boring old narration, drinking wine. Okay, I'm going off. What's let me know in the comments what you prefer. Now, what am I going to do with this rose? I don't know. You can watch me. I'm going to time lapse this. Let me know what you think. And I will see you on the other side. Okay, so as I'm watching this, it is getting to be like probably 8 months after I filmed this. So I would probably, like, I'm actually watching it and telling myself, do this, because I feel like I've learned more. And I've kind of I paint my flowers a little bit differently and paint my roses a little bit differently. Like, I really do not like that one pink rose there. It's really reminding me a little too much of something that comes with female anatomy. Sorry about that. Anyways, yeah, so, but I think this is still a valuable video, definitely, even though I feel like I should, you know, I've learned some things, and I'm kind of frustrated a little bit because I'm like, this is what you need to do as I'm sitting here narrating this. But many things are still exactly what I would teach now. So I think, you know, it's still a very valuable video, and most of this would be what I would say now. As you can see, I'm just going in and darkening up some of those shadows even more. I kind of made one of those into a bud. I just thought it looked better that way. And you want to have you want to make sure that you do have those different values. Like that one yellow flower just looks like it's really just completely lit up by the sun, and I just love that. And then you have the shadows, and it really helps to give a feeling of, obviously, dimension, but like there's a bunch of flowers there. So now I'm using, I'm going to go ahead and say it's, well, it might be gouache, but I think it's probably just white acrylic paint. So, you know, a purist would not be doing this, just FYI. And if for me, you know, whatever makes my painting look how I want it to look is what I'm going to do. If I am going to enter a watercolor contest, a watercolor, you know, whatever, juried watercolor, whatever, I obviously would not be able to use that because you don't want to use anything that's not watercolor. And many people don't even use masking fluid because they feel like it's not proper. But we are not watercolor snobs. Well, maybe some of you are, and you know, that's fine. And there's definitely something to be said for learning how to paint without adding white. I would love it, and I am still working on that, and I still try to teach myself to leave all the white spots that I want. But if I need to fix up a painting by adding some white right now, that's what I'm going to do. And I feel like that's fine. So you can use white gouache, and you can use white paint. And if you draw, like the problem is I don't sketch my roses, or my flowers, I should say, and these loose flowers. There's no sketch, so I don't even know what it's going to turn out like. I don't even know where I would put masking fluid for this. If I do, you know, a city skyline or something, I sketch it out and I know where I want those white, to leave some white things, some white spaces with some masking fluid. And masking fluid is just, it's exactly that. So you put it down, and it kind of, it protects the paper, and you can paint over it. And then once that's all dry, you lift that up, and it's like a glue almost, but not a glue because it comes off your paper really good. and it leaves perfectly crisp white lines behind, which is awesome. But with this, I would have no idea where to put it because I don't even know what my paintings are going to look like. So basically, I just have an idea of what colors I want to use and just an overall look. Like I want a whole bunch of flowers together. Maybe I'm looking at a bouquet. Maybe I'm just looking at a bunch of flowers in the garden. Who knows? I just wanted some warm tones of roses. Yeah, that's all I knew. So as you can see, I am still perfecting those, and so you can tell that I definitely don't do this in one go. You know, like I've had numerous times going back to these flowers, back to the different petals, and working them, perfecting them as they sit and dry a little bit more, or as, you know, I figure out what to do. Sometimes I leave them alone because I don't know what I'm doing and I need to just step away from that flower for a second because I don't know where to go next. And sometimes I leave it because it's too wet and the technique I want to do next is going to make it, is not going to work. I need it drier. And then other times I'm going to go right in because I need to work in some wet paper. Right there, it looks like I am doing some negative painting, although I'm not sure what my whole plan. Oh yeah, no, I see it now. I couldn't see that. Yeah, I like that actually. Ooh, that looks good. Now that I don't know, for some reason I couldn't see what I was doing. I was looking at the reddish orange part below that yellow flower, and I couldn't see it. And then as soon as I looked away and looked right at the flower itself, I all of a sudden saw it. Weird. And now I'm doing some dry brushing, and I really like it. I've said this many times. When the brush just skips along the paper and just catches the very texture of it, and I really like that look. And I do it, I think all the time, and I don't even know if I've ever done a painting that doesn't have it. And I do it in acrylic too. I really like that textured look. It kind of gives it a little bit more painterly look. I don't mind if it looks like it's painted in some parts. And I think I was doing some splattering there, just maybe splattering some water just to move things around a little bit. I'm trying to fix that one flower up there. But you know, as I'm looking at this again, I do really like the different things I've done here. I definitely feel like somehow, I didn't know I did, but now watching this, I know I've changed a little bit. I do the roses very much the same, but I do a little bit more variation in my lines. They're not all going in that same direction. So that is something that has changed that I like, and you can see that dry brushing there. And I will let you watch the rest of the video. Okay, people, I'm finally done. I need to stop playing. I really like the effect of just getting almost all the water off and then just going into my palette just on the side and then just bringing up that texture. I just think it just adds kind of like a wild look to it, and it just adds some details that aren't really details, but your mind kind of sees them as details, like just little, because I feel like with a painting like that you want really loose and soft, you do need some of these like fine details because it's not very detailed. I mean, except for the inside of the flowers. Anyways, I'll stop talking. I hope you enjoyed this, and please do let me know if you like my style of videos more to be a little bit informative with time-lapse and narrative, or if you like hearing my thought process in real time. And I guess there's probably a difference. Some people are like, I do not have patience for your blabbering, and some people are like, no, I like it because it helps me to just, you know, and then you kind of, I feel like I like both. Okay, I'm blabbing again, but I like both because I feel like, you know, I'm kind of painting along with a friend, or I'm just when I watch, I like with a friend or something, and then other times I'm like, okay, I just want to just watch a time lapse. I just want to watch videos and be relaxed and whatever. Anyways, let me know what you think in the comments below. I will see you on the next video.